Fine now. So good morning, everybody, and thank you, Vic, for the introduction. The main idea behind my presentation is that the mainstream approach to Ukrainian problem fails more often than it succeeds, and it is especially dangerous now when the donors and international organizations have huge leverage over Ukraine, and when the very survival of Ukraine depends on its modernization. So I will start with the underlying thing that probably many of you know about this social orders. This is the book of North Wayne Wallace. The most of the phenomena that Natalia and Marina have been discussing are actually explained by the limited access order. So Ukraine is predominantly a limited access order country, and the limited access order main principle is that peace and order in the society is uh, secured by exchange for rents. Those who can violate this order receive rents and become stationary bandits instead of roving bandits, and this is less destructive. So it is second best comparing to the uh, earlier social order, which was not an order at all. But sorry. Uh-huh. But in order to secure the rents, one should allocate privileges, and privileges are unfortunately not very costly for the economy. So this social order is incompatible with free competition, and it is some sort of um, an impediment for development and so on and so forth. But the most of countries still have it, and one of the main reasons for this is zero-sum thinking. This is my hypothesis. A few countries, maybe a few dozen of countries, managed to become open access orders in which there is an open competition in the economic and political spheres, and the lucrative opportunities are open for many people. This is an inclusive order, inclusive institutions, as Acemoglu and Robinson called it. The peculiarity of Ukraine within limited access order is that it has what my colleague Kirill Rogov from some time ago, Radar Institute, but now immigrated from Russia, called soft legal constraint. Who knows the concept of soft budget constraint? This is quite similar. So what is it? The legal constraint could be loose. It is good if you can do whatever you want. Or they could be hard. They could be tight. But they could be soft. You never know whether you are within the law or you are already violating the law. This is made by impracticable rules, like on these roadsides. But there is the only real constraint is a block of concrete. I can tell you a story about a street I lived on, this one-way street, and when the builders made some works on them, they put no entry sign on the other side of the street. So there was no way to get to the home or to the school and so on without violating the rules. And when they did need to stop the traffic, they put a real block of concrete. And this acts for the state officials too. This also a very informative notion of institutional trap. So many people believe that if we somehow impose the European norms on Ukraine, then it would be good and it will solve all of the problems. No, it will not solve the problems. It will create maybe more problems than it will solve because of the institutional traps. If the formal norms detach from the informal institutions, then some parasite interests and practices emerge in between. And I will now explain it with more details. And it becomes very hard to make any harmonization, because formal harmonization means that we impose even more formal rules, but they stumble on the informal interests and practices. And the real harmonization, harmonization of the principles, not the norms, is keeping formal norms based on the informal ones, like in the British parks. So, coming back to the soft legal constraints, how did they emerge? This is a theory of Vadim Volkov. You know that the severity of the Russian laws is mitigated only by their discretion of their enforcement, actually. And this first came into practice under the Peter I reforms. It was already an attempt of European harmonization of then Muscovy, patrimonial country, which was made by Peter, by Tsar Peter, and it succeeded in formal, but failed in the substance, because if you impose the rules, then these rules contradict to practices, and if they contradict to practices, then everybody is a lawbreaker. It cannot be so. So there cannot be a principle of inevitability of punishment. The law does not apply to all. The law is implemented at the discretion of начальник. Начальник is literally the boss, but in Russian and unfortunately in Ukrainian, a public servant is often called начальник because he or she wields the power, the real power, and the laws are written for the fools, because the real decisions are made by начальniks. The people who want something to be done in practice do not work with the laws; they work with the persons, and this is one of the underlying principles of the. I'm sorry. Of the limited access order. And Nikita Khrushchev once was very angry when a group of illegal entrepreneurs, because the entrepreneurship was illegal in the Soviet Union, was discovered in Moscow, and he became very angry and said, shoot them all. But Nikita Sergeyevich, you have personally abolished the capital punishment in the Soviet Union. So how can we shoot them? Who is the boss? Who is the boss? We are the law. So and they were shoot again. They say indeed, yes. So this is a personal lust of начальniks. They use it for extortion, and this is one of the underlying reasons for so much rampant corruption. But they also use it as a power, and this power allows them to create and recreate preconditions for extortion, and keeping the law as impracticable as it should be for such discretional use, or just discretional. So this is a self-reinforcement loop. There are a few such loops. The second one is discovered by Henry Hale, patronalism. When we have a weak rule of law, then the law is less frequently obeyed than disobeyed. Then we have the following situation. If there are rules of the game that benefit everybody, something good, but there are players that violate those rules. If these players are abandoned, then we have a bad equilibrium. And this is a Nash equilibrium, because if some player starts obeying the rules, he gets disadvantaged. And so this is a sustainable equilibrium, Nash equilibrium. And what happens next? The people respond that they would obey the rule, provided that the others would do the same. But in fact, they mostly do not obey the rules. And we have a situation like this, if the rules do not work. And in this situation, a pattern emerges that sorts out the problems and solves the problems, because the rules do not work. And this is an essence of the paternalism. The paternalism is a self-sustainable system, because if we have a leader and his what we call in Ukraine political clan, or what Held calls a pyramid, then this pyramid is a vertical horizontal, but essentially vertical social network, informal social network. And the whole politics, real politics, is an interplay of those networks, not the ideological parties. Oh. That's severe. Okay, so it needs a selective justice, because if the order is given to punish some disobedience, then this order should be fulfilled, and it's fulfilled as long as the fulfillers believe that this would be the same boss game in party in charge. And if there is an independent justice, then there can be no control over those political clans. So the heads of the political clans are the main politicians, and they are against the rule of law. They are begot by the lack of rule of law, and they prevent rule of law from emerging. Okay, so let me now skip this very interesting slide, but you can find it elsewhere in my chapter to the book of Adil and Madovich. And so as a result, we have the situation in which the rule of law, which is a very good proxy for absence of paternalism, is distributed as on this map. This is map from the Worldwide Governance Indicators, and you see a very clear border between the core Russian Empire and the rest of the world. So here, the rule of law is virtually absent. And this is only one country that made progress from 1998 to 2022, which is Georgia. And why is it so? Because this is a bad equilibrium. As I said, начальniks have power to create the conditions on which they exist. then people are also in the Nash equilibrium of the surveillance with the law, and they seek support of the same начальniks. They reach out to начальniks if they need some protection because the law doesn't work. Then also the government institutions are staffed by patronal means, so they have a certain culture, and whoever wants to reform those institutions with just formal things becomes helpless, like Yushchenko, for example, and has to resort to patronal institutions like Yushchenko employed Beloga in order to make them operational. What Georgia did, it did a leap from you see the level nearly Ukrainian, this is Ukraine, to the level ahead of Bulgaria, with some retreat afterwards. But in 10 years, it leaped from that level of the bad equilibrium to the level of nearly European. So, as I said, Ukrainians' survival as a nation is dependent on its ability to join the Western world. And it is not possible without functioning rule of law and without getting rid of paternalism. So there are opportunities, and the opportunity is indeed quite strong. Ukraine depends on the foreign aid, and if this foreign aid would be shaped in the right direction, it would help a lot. There is high domestic demand that Natalia described in the revolution of dignity and so on. This is demand of the rule of law, first of all. And this is a historical memory because Ukraine, unlike Russia, Ukraine was a part of the European state in the Middle Ages. So the post-war recovery should be associated with and intertwined with the speedy transition to the open access order. Although normally it takes decades, but in case of Ukraine, well, half of the way is already over. But Ukraine is just halfway of this transition, and in case of Ukraine, there is a certain necessity for such transition. Which approaches worked in Georgia? First of all, this is dramatic deregulation and streamlining of the law, so eliminating of the impracticable law, actually cutting the roots of the corruption and so on. Then simultaneously, complete overhaul of the state bodies that are prone to paternalism, because you need to replace simultaneously the rules and the people. That all people would recreate the rules, and if we put new people in the old rules, they will become as corrupt and paternal as their predecessor were. And what is also important and also out of the mainstream is amnesty for the past sins, because otherwise you will now have the principle of inevitability of punishment working. You will always go after the past sins, and you will never have the possibility to concentrate on the present sins. And enhancement of checks and balances, because Ukraine is a country of checks and balances, and it works on the regional level, but also it should be working on the national level as well. And I would stop here because I have more practical recommendations. You will find them in the paper, but Also, a very important last conclusion is that this way of European integration is indirect. So you need to first have European principles working, like the rule of law and so on, and make sure that they are working, which requires sometimes the regulations that are much simpler than now and much simpler than in the EU. And only then you can come to the real harmonization in those spheres where the harmonization would bring more discretion. We need first to eliminate discretion and then to introduce it, like paradoxically. But again, the fundamental is important. Thank you.